All right, so this is a screencast on how to use a spreadsheet to make a graph. You'll like it for a couple of reasons, mainly because it makes graphing much faster, and secondly, it's much more accurate. So the data that you have on your sheet, the independent variable, the thing that's being changed, is the time, and the units for that is in years. So we're going to go ahead, put that in, time in years. And then the dependent variable is the average number of sunspots. So for the first column, it starts off in 1945. It's when they have data for this sunspot activity. And then you just simply type in 1946. And you could continue doing that all the way down to 2013. However, there's a much quicker way, and that's where you highlight both of these years, and it's going to know then that you're going to add one each cell that you go down. So you take this blue square in the lower right-hand corner, click on it when it makes a plus, and drag it down a ways. Let's try right here. Oh, hey, perfect, 2013. So you can see how it automatically put all those numbers there. Now, you do need to go in and input this data for each year. There's no way of getting around that. So let's see, 32 is the number of sunspots for 1945. 1946 is 100. And you just need to continue going down this list and inputting in all those years. Once you have that completed, you'll have a sheet that looks something like this. And I'm going to go ahead and copy the titles for that onto our page that we're on here. And a little bit of a hint, you can come up here, see how this cell isn't long enough for the whole bit to fit in of the information you've written. So if you just come up here, make the little arrow to the right, and then double click, it'll automatically fit it to whatever you've typed right up here. Now, in order to graph it, there's many ways to do it, but probably the simplest is just to highlight everything you want to graph, including the labels of the X and Y axis in this case, and then come over to the Insert Chart button, which looks like a looks like a bar graph. And then it recommends a lot of different graphs, but we're going to go to Chart Types. If you go to a smooth line graph and click on it, you get something that isn't quite what you really wanted. And in order for it to look like you want, you need to use the column C as labels. So if you click on that, then all of a sudden you're going to get something that makes a lot more sense. It's a fluctuation of the number of sunspots. So you can see in 1958, there was 172 sunspots on average. But if you drop down to 1964, there's only 7. But it's pretty obvious once you have this graph up how you can see the cyclic nature of sunspots on the sun. You have really high amounts followed by valleys or low amounts, peaks and valleys. And that seems to be a trend, at least for over the last 100 years. Okay, once you have it in, you're ready to customize your chart or your graph. And in this case, you're going to need to change the title to the effect of the IV on the DV. You just go into where your title is, type that in, and make those corrections. The legend, remember, since we only have one set of data, we don't really need it. It's kind of redundant. So you just click on it and say that you don't want one, none, and it'll go away. And then you can go in and make sure that your X and your Y axis are properly labeled and ready to go. And when you're ready to input it, once you've made all of your changes, you're going to hit the Insert button. and it's going to come up and look something like this. And what I'd like for you to do once it comes up, to make it easier for me to look at and degrade, if you then come to this drop down arrow and hit the move to own sheet button, it will move it to where it's its own entire sheet, and also it's easier to read and get data from. All right, that's how to do a screencast, or that's a screencast on how to make a line graph using Google Sheets.